with my colleague Castro. We're honored to again be present today with all of you. This is a very important topic, and Carl and I wanted to just make a few remarks about the condition in the United States with regard to these issues of human rights and service member protections. In the U.S., we have approached this historically in a different way. That human rights issues are not present in our language when we talk about protecting soldiers or service members. We do have laws. One is called the Service Member Civil Relief Act, and our Department of Justice does have a program to assist military members and veterans. But almost all of these efforts are focused on civil law, things like housing, voting, getting assistance with disability relief, things of that nature. We also have numerous volunteer and both at a national level and local level. We have NGOs, nonprofit volunteer organizations that work with a variety of veterans issues, in particular those things that relate to physical and to psychological disability. And many of our state governmental organizations have veterans representatives, again, to assist veterans, but it's primarily around civil issues and medical issues. I'll ask Carl to just talk a little bit about how these issues of soldier rights are dealt with within the active military in the United States. Carl, go ahead.
Thank you, Jim. And again, let me just echo Jim's statement about how important this topic is, and thank you all for including Jim and I in these discussions. I just want to briefly just mention that
How you're muted.
Oh, for gosh sake. Well, thank you all. I'm not going to repeat everything that Jim just said. My apologies for that. Thank you for having both Jim and I here today to discuss this very important topic. And I just want to add that within the United States, the military is viewed as a unique profession. And so a lot of the general rights, not necessarily human rights, but the general rights that all civilians have, they do not exist in the military. And in many cases, explicitly so, in some cases, implicit. So, for example, if I have a civilian job and I want to quit, I can just quit. I don't even have to give a 2 weeks notice. I can just not show up. In the military, that's not allowed. That's not a right that any service member has, just to quit their job. When I don't like this job in the military, I'm quitting. So things like that are recognized within the United States, and it's also recognized within within both the civilian and military side. So there are these certain components and certain aspects of the military culture that are accepted as being different than exist in the civilian community. So I just want to start there. At the same time, there's this huge and important recognition that the morale and welfare of all service members is extremely important. And this goes all the way back to the founding of the United States with George Washington. And he established what's called an inspector general, which we have today. And their job is to investigate issues that impact on the morale, welfare, and well-being of service members. And what comes out of these investigations is a report that looks at whether or not is housing, for example, adequate? Is food adequate? Many of the investigations involved investigations of leaders who one could think of as, say, toxic leaders Should they be replaced? And there are other investigatory mechanisms for looking at poor leadership. So leadership is also one of these very, very important concepts within the U.S. military. And now the IG can investigate anything. I'm kind of really just focusing on those things that impact on soldier morale and well-being and welfare because they seem to take up a lot of the time. And service members can also, in addition to the IG, which is in the military chain. So all of this happens within the military chain of command. Although the IG is technically independent of the organization they're investigating, but they're all part of the military. In addition, service members can write to their members of Congress about issues that aren't resolved, and a member of Congress then can also initiate an investigation into individual cases or more global cases. And I have lots and lots of examples of where that has happened. And many times it results in an overall improvement in the life, if you will, of service members. So I'm going to stop there. But as Jim said, we do not use the word human rights, but we do use the word morale, welfare, well-being. Instances of abuse are addressed, and that abuse could be from other unit members, from your leaders. So those things are taken very, very seriously in the U.S. military. So I'll stop there and turn it over to the host of this topic here for the next set of speakers.
Thank you for sharing your experience. I'm happy to see everybody who has joined our webinar. My name is Ludmila. I'm Communications Manager of the Four-Post Civil Society Organization. Today I'm going to moderate our event. Today we are going to discuss the mechanisms of protection of rights of service members, legal, social, mental health aspects in the process. Our webinar is going to take 90 minutes. At first, we will listen to the Ukrainian experts, and then we will have the questions and answers session, maybe general comments and discussions, and then we will make conclusions. Please prepare your questions to the speakers. Maybe you will be able to ask your questions after the main part, or you can send your questions or comments to the chat, and I will read them during the questions and answers time. I hope this webinar is going to be useful for everybody because this is a really important topic. So let us start, and I wish that we should have very good, fruitful discussion. The first speaker, Mr. Taras Bezpalyi, Captain, Deputy Director of Central Department of Protection of Rights of Servicemen of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine. Taras, please, the floor is yours. So we also have questions to you if you want. Good evening, everybody, or good morning, taking into account our difference in time. Let me start with explaining what the Central Department is for protecting the rights of servicemen, what we do, and when we were founded, and then we will go on to the questions. It's good that you have mentioned the Inspector General who started working in 1775 in the United States, and we used the model of Inspector General to create the Central Department for Protection of Rights of Servicemen. So this is the provisional prototype of the military ombudsperson who is subordinate to the Minister of Defense of Ukraine. According to the structure, he is above the headquarters and all the types of military. He can react to the crisis situations, he can do investigations and influence the headquarters and all types of army. We have no influence on the National Guard of Ukraine or the Security Service of Ukraine because they have another subordination. So what do we do, essentially? We work on the violation of rights by the leaders, by the commanders, taking into account the fact that our army includes more than 1 million persons, and we have only 50 staff members in our department, we are not able to process all the claims and reports. On the hotline of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, we had 180,000 claims during the previous year, and it takes a lot of time to process all the claims and reports. So first of all, we work on the claims of violations on the well-being of the servicemen when they are not sent to the medical treatment, or when their medical or fitness is not very well assessed. So this is where we need to act quickly. Also, we have the cases. We consider the cases first of all. We prioritize the mass violations. We have processed the claims of 51 servicemen from one of the brigades of the armed forces of Ukraine. We were able to restore the right of 46 persons. They have been restored in their service, and we have restored payments to service members for 7 million hryvnias that they were deprived of. So this is the areas of our work to protect the rights of service members. How do we receive reports and claims? In fact, we have several channels to do that. When we were building our department in May and April of the previous year, we started using several channels to get the information. This is the official email of the Ministry of Defense. Also, we have a separate email. I will send the email address to the chat box later. Also, we use civil society organizations who can send us the claims on different range of issues. And in the structure,
Founded the department of SINT that is working with online sources. So we are not waiting for complaint to be voiced. We check Facebook, we check other sources, and we can see if there is a problem. And we react immediately before the application of the person who is suffering. Of course, not all of the requests are truthful, because some of them are not truthful, and in some cases we cannot solve the problem. But most of the time we are trying our best, and about 90% of a positive tendency. We reach this, like about 90% of success. How do we check military? In our Armed Forces of Ukraine, there is the Order 608 that is responsible for the checking of the military. So before, the procedure was it was like official request from the servicemen, and then the Ministry of Defense were deciding if we should do the checkup of the certain unit or certain like department. But 2 days ago, a special order by Ministry of Defense was signed that gives us the right, either by or my deputy, either me or my deputy, we can do this checkup of any unit by ourselves. And we can access any point, any unit all over Ukraine, and it simplifies a lot our method of these checkups. It simplifies our life greatly. So, what is the process of working on the application of these abuses? We work, of course, according to the law. If we take a law about the application of the civilians, the term of working on this request is about 30 days, and we have 10 to 15 days to solve the issue. Because normally other departments take much more longer time to check up those requests, and ours method of checking up this request is much more simplified. So what we do first, we check if the serviceman made some reports about abuse, if the problem exists, what reaction was by his leadership, and why this problem has happened. When we check those issues, we form ourselves the problem, how it looks, and we have this problem. We found out that there is a problem in our units that leadership sometimes refuse those application of some problems, and there is no special. Because they can refuse the report because of some bureaucracy, some issues with the form of this report itself. But now we have a new legislation that simplifies the process as well. And this was the way how we solved this problem. So now more reports could be processed by leadership. And also, and what I would like to add that we don't only work with the issues of the servicemen, but also we're trying to simplify the process of them reporting about the abuse or any problems. And this is our we have these two tasks simultaneously. So if we found out that some servicemen got reported about some abuse, we go to go directly to the unit. We check and we check this unit personally. We check this leader. From the point when our department was created, we have a tight connection and cooperation with other departments who support us in our efforts. We work with police. We work with other ministries. And when I'm talking about that we are working with the police, we can apply to them if there was some abuse from the leadership to his servicemen. So we can apply to the police too, and they can enforce some measures, and they can start the investigation. And so the process is like that. So we do the application to the police department, and they provide the investigation. So it is not just some formality. Our aim is just to complete our task and to prevent other cases from happening. And our main task, of course, is to solve the issue with which the servicemen were applying to us, and to thank you very much. I also would like to remind you that if you have any question, please write them on the chat. Our next speaker is Oleh Dombrovskyi. He's a speaker from Zahid department. So please, Oleh, over to you. Hello, I'm very thankful for this presentation. I would like to say that all my professional activity is tightly connected to the personnel, work with the personnel, support of personnel, and I would like to talk today about what is going on in my department, and also how we work with military psychologists and how it is connected to our military. The question that was announced today is about the work with the problem of the rights of our servicemen. And of course, what already Taras said, that there is this new department now, and we are very happy that now those issues could be solved. And we have also a lot of personnel who works now who are now in military that were not in active service for a while, and they just started to work again. And it's very good that this central management was created, so it is easier for us to react on any applications of some abuse or anything like that. And we also uh, uh, according to the new legislation, all of the military servicemen can do those applications. And the question is if we can reply on all the requests, because the quantity of the servicemen is quite huge, and for us to process all the application is quite difficult. Also, another problem is the training of the personnel, and also the question about the rights of the servicemen, because, for instance, they do not have the right to express, like, if they want to gather. I'm sorry. I would like. Okay, so there are a lot of problems now in our military. So, and we are trying to solve all those problems. And if we'll our legal system is not able to proceed all the requests on the changes of the legislation to provide the protection of the rights of our military. Of course, we have now new initiatives that can help with solving these issues, but the process is quite slow. We have some positive changes, and as Ukraine now is in the state of war, we have still democracy in our country, and this is very important to state. And I would like to state also that in Ukraine, we also, of course, are working according to the law, and we work with our military according to the law. We have by law the people who are the servicemen who were wounded in the combat action, they have to get special payments. And also, what I want to mention that also our military, they cannot quit, and because it is martial law now, and of course, even during the peaceful times, they could not have done it either. What is a big issue now that I would like to address is that our medical system is not ready to support the physical health of our citizens. We have a lot of issues with medical commissions and the selection of our servicemen to be sent to the deployments. And here is the question of the responsibility, because which stage on which stage should we start the control of the health of our citizens? Should state be responsible for the health of our citizens? Because we are talking about the conscription resources and the ability of the country in the critical moment to fight the invasion. If our population will be sick, not healthy enough, they're not going going to be enough soldiers or resources, human resources, to keep up long term to contradict the foreign aggression. And this is the main question. And I think it should be addressed by governments, and the institutions should review these questions and maybe do some reforms, because it influences a lot our successes during the war. Also, beside that, I would like to add that there is no normal mechanism to provide the criminal record, or like to any punishment for going or for deserting the army. According our law, these offenses have no expiration date, and I would like to add that our enemy uses this issue a lot, because they use this information for their propaganda, and they use misinformation they use misinformation, and therefore the level of our soldiers going AWOL increased significantly. And we have to talk about clearly and to try to direct the activity of some institutions, that this is a very important part of this whole process. About the question of
So how the government support the mental health during the service and after the service? This is a complicated issue that needs serious discussion. In the Ministry of Defense, in the General Staff and other relevant institutions, I have been saying many times that we can't change any approaches of psychological support of the personnel until we make amendments in the current legislation of Ukraine. How can we discuss the building of Institute of Military Psychologists of Ukraine when with the order of the President of Ukraine is dated back 25 years from 1999. So the current order is not up to date because our country has been in war for 11 years. This is nonsense. We are changing some things, but the foundation is not being changed. I would like to point your attention to the fact that the military service during the war is connected with significant mental health stresses, and our government is implementing different programs to help the military staff members. We create rehabilitation centers. It's great that this initiative is ongoing, for example, in the western regions of Ukraine. For example, in the city of Lviv, we have the clinical military center. We have these centers in Kiev, Odessa, Kharkiv, and Vinnytsia, but these resources will not be sufficient after Ukraine will start its post-war period of restoration and recovery. The system is not coordinated and is not clearly defined. In my personal point of view and from my experience, I can say that we don't have the uniform roadmap. We don't have a uniform vision or strategy of what we are going to do with the service members who are going to retire from the army. Do we have the necessary mental health resources to help our brothers and sisters recover when they are going back from the army and try to socialize in the society? This is a big problem. Another point is the work of military psychologists in the units. In general, in the military units, we have psychologists who work with the personnel on the elementary rules of stress resilience, emotional resilience, prevention of PTSD, and so on. However, the system which works now in the groups of mental health support and group of combat stress control, this is great. However, the system of training the personnel and military psychologists included in the combat stress control groups or support groups, this has not been sufficient. It is not well developed and it doesn't cover different types of tasks performed by our military servicemen. As Taras has said, we can protect the rights of military servicemen in the structure of the armed forces of Ukraine, but we can't scale up the uniform process and vision to the National Guard of Ukraine, to the Border Service of Ukraine, to the Patrol Police and the National Police, though they also perform combat tasks in the east on the same front line. They also need mental health support. So this works in the armed forces, in the army. But what about other defense and forces? This is not clear, and we don't have this unity. The most critical point is to make amendments in the order of the president. We had to prepare the uniform concept of mental health support, and this is a very important issue, because in my opinion, in the country, we have to have the uniform trend. Another point that I would like to mention, we need to take into account the international partner programs. For example, we can take into account the work of the American system, or the work of Veteran Affairs, who has an efficient model of supporting veterans. But what risks we are facing? We don't have the sufficient number of personnel in order to ensure efficient implementation of policies related to the mental health rehabilitation of our service members who are going to retire. We don't have sufficient funding of psychological support. We can't build serious things if we don't have the financial foundation. We have to answer this frankly and honestly. If we don't have funding, we will not be able to realize, to implement the projects. We can't only use the projects which are co-funded by our international partners, because we don't know how long these projects will last. This is a risk for us. Our government has to learn to implement these policies by themselves, and we have to have a well-founded approach. Also, we have stigma among the service members when they go to psychologist. This is another problem that has not been resolved so far. We are not working enough in this regard. We don't have the uniform system of control of mental health state of the service members. We have a very disorderly and chaotic system. We don't have a single vision, and resolving these issues is one of the priorities for the government policies in general. As for how the service members can implement their rights for mental health support, at first, we have military psychologists in the units. Our service members can go to their psychologist in the unit. Also, we have medical rehabilitation centers that I have mentioned. Also, we have centers of moral and psychological support, which have been opened in every operational command for every types of services. Are they efficient? Probably not, because they don't take into account the critical importance of preparing the personnel abroad. They need to get international experience, and they can exchange our experience as well. The volunteer and civil society initiatives that I have mentioned, a number of non-government organizations are getting involved, and one of the funds is named Return Alive. They provide mental health support. We have a lot of civil initiatives, but who is going to be the father of the process? Who is going to play the leading role? There is no one to do this. Every civil society organization are selecting their own path to implement the policy, but I believe that they have to work in a uniform way. Also, we have confidential hotlines that work 24/7 for anonymous reports, for anonymous mental health support, and also we have the military chaplain services. There are certain limits in the process. At first, the service members very often are afraid to ask a psychologist for help because they believe that this is a weakness. This is a challenge for us, and I have been working with this, I can tell you honestly. We don't have enough qualified specialists in the army. And also, there is the lack of trust, unfortunately, to the civilian psychotherapists, because they don't understand the specifics of war. We need to discuss the process of awareness raising among civilian psychologists. They need to learn the nuances of the military operations. In order to resolve these issues, we need to develop, in general, the system of mental health checkups and the government programs of rehabilitation for military service members. Also, I would like to point your attention to the legal status of servicemen and its impact on the work of military psychologists and psychotherapists. In general, the legal status of military experts in mental health is regulated by several rules and regulations, the law of Ukraine on the legal protection of the military servicemen, which, among other things, regulates the area of work of military psychologists in Ukraine. If we take the legal framework that has been there from the beginning, we have a lot of good ideas and initiatives, but they have not been framed into law. We are not able to scale them up legally. At first, we need to have a relevant law providing the framework. And if we have this framework, we will be able to remove the chaos. Because right now the system is very chaotic. So at first, military psychologists are in the structure which is limiting their independence of decision making. Secondly, our psychologists have to comply with the military discipline, which can contradict the principles of confidentiality. Our military psychologists don't always have the opportunity to keep some information confidential about the service members, because we know that there can be certain impacts. Sometimes they need to tell the leaders some information about a particular private or service member, and this is happening because of the lack of certain legal initiatives, and we don't have the relevant number of experts and clear-cut standards of work. They have not been certified or codified. If they are certified, who is going to do this and how? These are the very serious and deep things. Because we are a mature nation, we have been at war for 11 years, and we need to resolve these issues finally. We have to stop playing games and start having a serious adult talks. The main challenges in front of the psychologists in military. This is the balance between the leaders and the service members. The absence of mechanisms of control and the elevation of efficiency of mental health support. It is also necessary to integrate international experience and NATO approaches to the mental health support of the military service members. Another key point that I would like to mention, please, this is we absolutely don't have any certified program around psychological research. No software, no computer program in Ukraine is certified. This is also a risk, and a big one. In general, the prospects to improve the situation. We need to create the independent system of military psychologists who are not going to be subordinate to the leadership. We need to provide the military with qualified civilian psychotherapists between the government and private partnership. It is already happening, but they have to be regulated legally. And also we need to implement mandatory mental health rehabilitation after the deployment in the front line. So it shouldn't happen only on paper. We need to have serious, real rehabilitation interventions to have positive effects, because we need to keep the morale and military capabilities of military units to be able to perform their tasks. Thank you for your attention, dear colleagues. Thank you, Oleh, for this very well-founded report. Thanks to the speakers for the main reports. And now we have the questions and answers section. If anybody would like to ask questions or make comments or maybe specify some information, you are welcome. I will read several questions that we received. I would like to remind you that you can also send your comments or questions in the chat. A few situations. Maybe this is to the both of the speakers. What is the mechanism of reporting on violation of rights and abuse by the leaders? Do you mean... could you repeat once again? I'm sorry for the wording, I just quoted it. What is the mechanism of reporting for violation of rights and abuse by the leader or commander? Well, the mechanism is rather simple. At first, the service member can use a hotline. We have the communication system, which was created through the mental health support of the personnel. We have the combat stress control groups that I have mentioned. And why I insist that the military psychologists are the institution, and Taras has indicated that you can use the hotline of the Ministry of Defense. The telephone number is 1512. So the military psychologists have to be mobile and independent as much as possible. Because military psychologists depend on their commanders. Yes, a psychologist is an assistant and an advisor, but the function of the psychologist is to support every military unit. And this military unit can be the object of support, and the commander and all the service members from private to general. So it is important to perceive it as a fact. Yes, within the statutes, as a military rank, all right, we are not violating anything. Of course, we have the subordination and so on.
Yeah, talking about functionality, it would be a very right decision because military psychologists cannot be, for now, directly send people for treatment. Because if they are working with certain people and if there is a big problem there, like if there is like PTSD, so he can apply to the leadership and describe the problem and try to explain that this problem can create some problem. And it would be cool if leadership would not be able to contradict the psychologist. But if we're talking about the application, first of all, we have to provide such a condition so our military will not be scared to make those reports, because sometimes they keep quiet just because they are not, there are no conditions for them being capable to report these problems. And there is a big stigmatization from our society to these militaries that are now in the armed forces of Ukraine. And the main question is about the readiness on all levels of the leadership to directly contact with a single serviceman. This is the main problem because we have several units where this question is very well addressed, and because it also depends on this certain like military unit. Can I please ask you to repeat the question? So what is the mechanism of reporting on the abuse from the leadership? I think that the question formed a bit weirdly, but the mechanism is quite simple. There are hotlines from the Ministry of Defense where those reports could be made about the right abuse, and those could be made personal and anonymous. And also, all those reports are saved in the special database, and this application would not be lost for sure because it is stored in this database. And this question goes directly to the control unit and for further investigation. I wrote on the chat the mails where those applications could be submitted. The second mail is the address from the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, where the application could be submitted to. Those are two different emails, and I would like to explain how they're different. So the first one, we have our Ministry of Defense, the Department of Regional Management, and its battalions. All of those departments are responsible for reacting on those reports, and the quantity of those people is much more than we have staff in our department. So for them, it's going to be like easier to reply on those requests because we don't have this personnel capacity to answer all those reports and to do it in a quality manner. That's so how we address this problem. If you submitted your report and you see that in 2-3 weeks you do not have any replies, then you have to write an email to submit the report on the second email. If you address with the report directly to us, if, for instance, some servicemen have a problem when the leadership is not sending him for the medical treatment, and it can lead to his the loss of limbs or for amputation, he should apply to our department, and we will proceed with the investigation on this subject. And we are trying to solve all those issues horizontally, because for us the main problem is not just like to do the reports and do bureaucracy thing, but for us very important is to solve the real issue. And I can see that Oleh is nodding to me, and I know that he has some experience with our department. And there was a case last week when I was applying to Oleh with a question where there was one serviceman that was drafted, and he is now in the field. He cannot use his cell phone, and because of some security reasons, and his mother died at the same time. So we were trying to reach him, and so he got this leave. He went for the funeral. So this is an example of the urgent our urgent intervention in this problem. So what I'm saying, so there is a hotline, there are those 2 emails, and those are 3 ways that are most effective. Sometimes, of course, it doesn't work, but we are trying our best to solve all the issues. Thank you. Thank you. I would like also to add a few more questions. Is there is a lineup for this investigation of the reports, or and which report is the most frequent? There is no lineup. We are trying to solve the problems. Either it's like so we are trying to design ourselves on the urgency of the reports of the issues that being reported. because sometimes for instance, with the payment, this is not urgent, of course, because there could be like court cases and everything, but this is not the urgent. This is not the question of life and death. But the other question is like about the urgent medical treatment or intervention. These questions are more urgent, and we are trying to work on those issues as fast as possible, as urgently as possible. If now we have about 30 to 50 reports on the average officer, and we are trying to answer each of the reports. We are writing. We are trying to reply on each report and applying to this leadership that got the report, and we are informing them that further investigation is in process. So our task is to bring the attention of the leadership on the issues that they have in their unit and try to solve the issue as fast as possible. Last year we had this case when the Brigade of Territorial Defense and 50 members were excluded from the list of this brigade, and at some point officer approached those 50 people that were not in this list and asked to leave their arms and to leave the unit. But they understood that in this case they would be perceived as going AWOL, and so they made a report. They called the hotline, and we were trying to address this issue. And so what we did when this brigade was formed, those 50 people were not present by certain reasons. Some of them were like in the hospital or on leave, and it was some technical issue, and they were not included in this list of the brigade. And then the issue was like that they were not included in the list, and leadership were trying to cover up the situation, and they just sent those people like as people that went AWOL. So, but we have this application, and we reached the leadership. We tried to investigate this situation, and we solved the issue. We found out what happened because some of those servicemen were in the hospitals or on the leave, and so we solved this issue, and their rights were restored. Thank you for your example. We have more question. Alexander, over to you. Your question, please. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm a psychotherapist, and I'm working with the military since 2014. I'm very pleased to hear from Oleh and Taras that there is an understanding of the problems that we are facing now, and that interrupt us and that prevent Ukrainian army to be more civilized and protect the rights of our servicemen. And there is this understanding of this problem of the lack of the personnel for the rehabilitation of our military. And I would like to hear where are those tools and opportunities to solve those issues. Who should initiate the process, and what are the ways of the resolving of those issues? I have written multiple articles on this problem, but at some point I was just tired because I saw that there is no answer for my applications. because we have a lot of people who could create the initiative so for some amendments in our laws to create some institutions, to create some departments to solve those problems. And I would like to ask Oleh and Taras, how can we solve those like sort of narrow places in our legislation? Thank you that you applied to us with this question. I understand what you are talking about. You say that nobody wants to do nothing. I'm not talking, it cannot be applied to everyone, but that is the situation that we have now. I will give you some examples of how we created the instructions or about the order of work with this problem. We had an applicant with initiative to change the legislation on this issue. It was Oleh Kobylyanska. She is working in Ukrainian NGO, and we started to work together on this making these amendments in Ukrainian legislation on this issue. So I cannot talk about all the structure in departments because I don't have direct contact with all of them. But if you know some people with initiatives that could support your activity, so please contact me after the seminar, and I will try to link you with the people who can help you in this issue. Because this is very doable. Because it's mostly about the issue of communication and about knowing like right people to whom you can apply.
If you don't talk to me, I will not be able to help you because I don't work with it directly, but I will help you to contact the relevant people. Yes, I will add a few words to Taras. Alexander and dear audience, on Monday, I will have a meeting with the Deputy Minister of Defense of Ukraine, who is responsible, among other things, for mental health support. So we will have this meeting in order to make some initiatives in the legislation. And as Taras mentioned, and we are always saying this, this is about communications, horizontal, vertical, diagonal, anyway. But right now we have a synergy of knowledge. We all understand that some things have to be changed. So we have reached this point. Right now, my first task is to establish dialogue with the officials who are responsible for this issue and to help them listen to us. Then I will need to set the priorities of tasks that we would like to resolve right now. I understand, and I have been mentioning this, that without legislative initiatives, we will not be able to make any serious changes. Right now, our task number one is to work on this in the legislative field. I think this dialogue is going to happen in a very constructive way because we have been preparing for a long time for that. Moreover, a team of my colleagues in the Ministry of Defense has been working for more than a year on this project. But this is our common experience that has connected us, united us since we were in the Territorial Defense Forces. People have been getting involved and getting interested of what the army is. We would like to help this enormous machine, and why do we need to help it? So when the civil environment started working with the army circles, we all understand that we have a lot of problems, but we have some external experience and knowledge that we can unify and get a very good positive result. And Taras had a very good idea. Of course, You can work with the Department of Mental Health Support in the Ministry of Defense. We have the main Department of Mental Health Support of the personnel in the headquarters. These are the two structures that work together. We also have the Ministry of Veteran Affairs. We have the Ministry of Social Policy. We have a lot of government institutions that have to be engaged in the process. And we are going to work on these issues. The only our enemy is time. Our only enemy is the duration of the war. It slows down the implementation of the initiatives because we have to constantly change and adapt to something. This is the requirement of the time. And Taras will confirm we have a lot of issues. Well, we couldn't have had these issues before because we didn't have these circumstances. So the fate is giving us a bad chance to rethink everything, to put everything on rails, to make it work. And for this system that we are developing, for all the models that we are developing today, we can try to make them as sustainable and adaptive as possible. When we reach this effect, nobody will have any questions. If Alexander makes a great initiative from the point of view of his professional activities, experience, knowledge and skills, and then he understands that there is an institution working in this area, this is going to be a good positive effect. But we need to do some serious work about it, and we have to understand that we are never going to have sufficient time. In the 11 years of the war, a lot of things have been done, but honestly, is it scalable? Is it sustainable? This is a question. Thank you. Another question from Svetlana. Good day. I have a question. Maybe it's not very relevant right now, but this is about people who are asking me for help. I'm a clinical psychologist. I work in the Bogdanivska ambulatory clinic. And there is a very frequent question. How to get a certificate of participant in the military activities? Well, maybe this is not a timely question. How to get the confirmation of a participant of military activities? So the person has been drafted on the 8th of October. He is serving somewhere near the Sumy, and he still doesn't have the credentials confirming that he is serving in the front line. And who is inspecting the rehabilitation centers working on our territory? Taras, will you answer, or should I do it? Well, in fact, there is a well-known procedure to receive the certificate of a participant of military activities. The system works, and there is a clear procedure how people can get it. It's in the open access. And the second question is not for me. All right, Taras. Ms. Svetlana, as for the inspections of rehabilitation centers and checking and monitoring the services provided within the psychological rehabilitation of military servicemen and veterans, so the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine and the General Headquarters sign memorandums with the centers providing these services, and the government is paying for these services. Maybe our partner funds, international funds that help, not directly to the military forces of Ukraine, because we can't get sponsorship support. But there are some projects that work through humanitarian missions to help psychological rehabilitations of veterans, not the active service members, but only veterans. And as for the quality control of services, this is an open question. As I have mentioned, we don't have the legislative framework. and we are not able to refer to any rules or regulations. We only have an outdated order of the president, which has been there for 25 years, and we are standing this still in the one spot. But we have been constantly raising this issue. We say that we need to have changes, and we are trying to do this. But we are dragging this burden in the form of the legal framework that we do not want to change. So we are just pressing against a wall. In order to change something, we need to take leadership, we need to take responsibility. Well, we should not be protracting. We need to resolve this issue together to get the result. And maybe we will not have this question, who is responsible for checking the quality of services? Of course, we can discuss the quality of service to one service member or veteran, and whether this mental health service will be efficient enough not to do harm to the veteran or service member. Because there is a chance that after the rehabilitation, what if some of their functions are being disrupted? And who is going to be responsible for that? Because we are talking about the capacities and resources of our forces of defense to perform their mission of defense. Because, well, when we talk about the defense forces, our first thought that comes to mind that this is only the armed forces of Ukraine, but we have to focus on other subdivisions as the National Guard, the border forces, the emergency services. They are also in the risk group. For example, in Kharkiv region, Kherson region, in the north of Ukraine, we have frequent shellings. Our firefighters are suffering from attacks when they respond to the fires. Who is going to take care of these categories of people? Maybe this person is going to join the army soon. So who will control their psycho-emotional state? Nobody is controlling, but we have to do this because we have knowledge and experience, and we need to generalize everything, and we need to scale it up and transform it into good, serious initiatives. We need to talk about it in a serious way and constructively. We need to stop our ambitions, we need to sit together and discuss these issues, because this is the foundation of our future. Thank you. Thank you. Maybe it would be useful to collect all the links and offer the step-by-step guidelines of where people can refer with the reports or questions, because a lot of people are asking where they can refer. Maybe other people have questions or comments. We have collected some questions before, so we will publish all the links near the recording. So the question is, what is the procedure of refusing to fulfill the operational order? And what is the procedure of investigation? This is a very interesting question. How soldiers can refuse to fulfill their combat order? How can they refuse to use the arms? Well, this is a crime which is punishable according to the Criminal Code of Ukraine, just like the desertion or going AWOL, as we have mentioned before. Well, this is very simple. There are no reasons. Well, this is what I'm going to tell you from the psychological point of view. Well, from the legal point of view, everything is clear. The law says if you commit a violation, you have to bear the responsibility. But the question is why a soldier refuses to use the arms, to use their weapons. Because weapon is a serious thing to act with. They can use weapons to kill the enemy, to do damages, to inflict damages on the enemy, to stop them from combat. So sometimes you don't need to kill your enemy. You can just wound them. So the question is about the psychological aspects. And this is a very big work for the group of combat stress control or mental health support groups. In general, this is a question of motivation of our service members, the question of information hygiene. And how much, well, a soldier is a person. They have bones and flesh and everything that is around us in general. This is not some kind of separate institution from Mars. And we need to take this into account. The number of people, of soldiers who refuse to fulfill the tasks right now, and the problems that we have right now with soldiers going AWOL, it depends on many factors. We can't say that there is one unique factor influencing or impacting the share of deserting soldiers. This is a very individual problem. Somebody can say that there are 5 conditions, 5 reasons for desertion. This is not true. Every person is an individual, a personality, and nobody knows what can have an influence on their mentality. My experience of working with people going AWOL or people who refuse to fulfill combat tasks, if they have a strong leader who is ready to go first, and if people are not scared of him, soldiers say that I'm going to fulfill my combat tasks in any condition. It doesn't depend, it doesn't matter how much munition I have and conditions and how long I have to walk. If the soldier sees that my leader is a powerful person, he is a real leader, he is motivating me and inspiring me, my leader can be 40 kilometers from me, from my position. But this soldier is going to fulfill the task, and not only fulfill the task, but do even more. And I know such examples. We are not talking about experience or age or the duration of staying on the front line.
There are a lot of other factors that influence on those things. And those who are looking for the reasons of not use arms, this is also the issue to apply to the military psychologists, to chaplains, for them to support morale and the psychological state of the person, because all of us are live people. Military are live people, and they have all their psyche, and they have some issues that could be resolved. And also we have to put attention that our experience that is lasts more than 12 years could help us to solve those issues efficiently. And I always tell that the problem of the desertions, the problem of the implementations of the orders, the problem of AWOL are not just Ukrainian issues. This is the issues of any war. As many wars, those issues were during all the wars. And if you are interested, you can read Orwell's book, and you can see that what we have now, our humanity had 100 years ago. They all are the same. Thank you. Can I please ask you to reply to ask these questions again, because it was very specific? I saw we don't have enough time. I will read very fast more questions and then we will finish. The question is it no, this is the wrong question. Just a moment. When the personnel refuse to follow the orders because of some issues with health, is it a criminal offense? And is there investigation after this incident? Okay, understood the question. I will try to answer it. So let me start from the very end. Since 2009, I was working as a lawyer, and I was like working in criminal law, so I understand the question. If we are talking about the refusal of the implementation of the order, this is a criminal offense. We have Article 4, Article 402, and those are a criminal offense, and the person could go to jail up to 10 years. Could get this. It could have. And if we are talking about the courts, we know that court can give a real terms in jail for those offenses. If we say that the person could not implement the order because of some health issue or some physical condition or some psychological condition, then it will be not the service investigation. But we have another article that like 608 by our Ministry of Defense, and this is like a different offense. And then this case will be investigated, and we will check how was the procedure, how the order was given, what was the health condition of the service member before this order, was his psychological state assessed, did he have previous condition before sending to the deployment, and about 99% of those refusals are mostly among the people who are afraid, who don't have trust enough to the leadership. This is the fear of death, if we're gonna be say like truthfully, and 99% in 90% we have to follow this case closely and to investigate what the state of this person was before this deployment. And we understand that the fear is very natural, and we understand that there were some pre-existing conditions in his psychological health. And we can say also that more often that those service members, they do not request some medical support before deployed. And we have seen what the consequences can have those refusals, and sometimes there are some court implementation that if to protect human rights or to protect the rights of civilian. There's another question. The question is like, what are the legal opportunities for civilian lawyers to protect the rights of the military? So they could be protected by civil lawyers. They have to have special special certificate to do that. We have a lot of requests to the Ministry of Defense and to our department. And we know that a lot of successful lawyers that work in those cases. Thank you. Thank you for your answer. Thank you. As we have not enough time, I would like to conclude our seminar. Thank you to our speakers. If maybe someone have any comments, I would like to thank about for this opportunity to take part in this seminar. I'm really pleased to be part of this project. I know that we did it more frequent before. Now it's more rare occasions, but I'm still grateful for this opportunity, for your project, for support of all those processes. This is very important for us. I'm very pleased when such initiatives they help us to find new solutions on the issues that arises. And also, I would like to comment what said Taras, because it's very important to work horizontally, not vertically, to solve the issues. Like, for instance, today we were working in Vinnytska Oblast, in Lutsk, and we were talking to Julia Spas. She's the head of administration, and this is a question basically of communication, because there were so many urgent issues before I came. But when I came and we talked about those issues, we were able to resolve most of them, and of course the urgency of most of this. So the communication is the main thing, and for people it's very important to know that there are people who can help them and support them in their issues. And I'm thank you for this seminar, that you make it more visible for others, that there is this support for everyone. Also, I would like to say that I'm having the meeting next Monday with the Deputy Minister, and I will raise the issues that were raised during this seminar. And thank you, Taras, for your activity in these problems. Thank you for your reaction on my and for reply for my for answer for my question. In reality, the quantity of our military personnel was 5 times less, smaller than we have now. And now people who are in the army, those are basically former civilians, and they don't know about their rights. They don't know about anything about the violation of their rights, and they don't know that they have a right for psychological support. And together with that, one of the leader that me and Oleh were in contact with, he placed this question of what is the function of the military member, of the servicemen. And lots of people started to give different answers on this question, but this general, he replied really simply on this question. He said the answer is very simple. The function of servicemen is to kill. So the function of the serviceman is to kill the enemy that invaded our land. So if we are talking about the structure of Ministry of Defense, of the General Department, our task is to support the serviceman to do its function. For him not to be scared, for him to have a decent supply, his welfare was met, his basic needs were met, that he know that he has some civil protection, that his family will be socially protected, and if all of us together, we will work on that, we will have a chance to win this war. Thank you. Thank you to all of our speakers, to Taras, to Oleh. Thank you, Jim and Carl, for joining us today. Everyone who joined our webinar today, our organizers, our interpreters, our technical team. And also I would like to remind you that the webinar was recorded, so you can watch it again on our YouTube channel. And we will post all the comments there too, and we will copy all those links, all those useful links, if so you will have access to that. And maybe if you watch this video again, you will find something new and useful again. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.